Alright, welcome to my first Twitch stream. So this is going to be an intro to Scuttlebutt. We're going to be looking at the ssb-client, which is one of the main ways that you can interact with your Scuttlebutt database from JavaScript at the moment. So maybe I'll draw a little picture. What are the parts of the system? Well, there's this thing that's, in my opinion, poorly named ssb. I'm going to make that tool less scripty. How about this one? Oh. This is boring watching me mess with tools, eh? Oh, it's probably that. Okay, cool. So what are the parts of the system? There's something called, we're going to be dealing with Scuttlebutt, and we're going to be dealing with ssb-client. Whoop. These are slightly strangely named. I'm hoping that in the near future that this will be renamed ssb server. Other aliases that we're going to hear it by are sbot, which is just short for Scuttlebutt. So what are these things and what are their roles? There is basically a database which we don't tend to interact with directly ourselves. How do I draw a database? This is just the record of all of the messages. Scuttlebutt, this is one of the roles of Scuttlebutt, is it provides an API with which you can query and write to that database. The other role of the Scuttlebutt is, so this is like all inside my one computer. So this is all running inside my computer. There will be other computers out there on the internet or maybe on your local area network. And they will also be running sbots. And sbot is doing the gossip thing with those other peers, and it manages that. And there are commands to like get it to gossip with particular peers, but we're not going to be looking at those at the moment today. So that's what Scuttlebutt does. Let's maybe start off by installing a standalone Scuttlebutt. So, okay, yeah, we'll do that. So, this assumes that you've got Node installed. If you haven't got Node installed, I recommend you go and look for NVM, which is Node Version Manager. It's a great way to install Node and not have to install it with a sudo setup. So for this, I'm running Node 8.6, but I haven't had problems with any of the recent versions of Node. Okay, so we're going to use npm to install it. Npm install Scuttlebutt globally. I think I've already got it installed, so maybe I'll just go ahead and start using it. I'm actually already running a Scuttlebutt, so close that. So what are the commands? Could not connect to sbot. Oh, okay. So the first thing that you want to do with your sbot is you need to start an sbot. So sbot server is how you start the server. So now it's waking up, it's checking its database, it's checking some indexes and stuff, and it's now active. So we can do now so you can do queries to your sbot from the command line, which is just a good way to check that it's running. the most simple one that you can do is whom am I? Who am I? SBot, who am I? So this asks SBot, like, what is the current identity that you have loaded in? And we'll talk about this later. You can start multiple identities. You can run test things. Whoa. I think this SBot install might be a bad idea while I'm running a stream. So we'll just assume that that worked. So we've got our SBot running, and we can run SBot who am I? What other basic commands can we run? So probably the other ones that I mainly run from the command line occasionally are creating an invite, and this is more if you're running a pub, and this is accepting an invite, and this is how you accept one manually. You can do other things like block people manually from here as well. And there were some basic commands for checking the health of your database, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. Let's see if they are in my history. No, leave it alone. Okay, so hello Toma Topel. Any questions so far? I'll just keep sort of in the help text there was a thing, was that thing friends all? Yeah. But if you do friends all, it doesn't work. Let's try it. Yeah, that's discouraging. Like I said, we can try doing some friends all stuff, but I tend to be running things from JavaScript, so we'll try to do that. Okay, so I've started this new repo where we're going to write a series of things in JavaScript. So I'm going to initialize this node project. What we need to connect to the SBot is this ssb-client. So this is a JavaScript thing, JavaScript module, and it's got a range of it basically has it sets up a connection for you internally to your Scuttlebot as long as your Scuttlebot's running, and it does that over this thing called mux RPC. I think mux is multiplex, RPX is remote process call, as in we're going to remotely be calling the same functions as if they were over here. One of the advantages of having this set up is that you can have multiple SSB clients and one SBot, which is managing your database and writing to it and stuff. So let's see how that works. So we're going to install ssb-client, and maybe let's go look at the repo for the basic use of it while it installs. So it says require it in, and then the simplest use case is you just run it, and inside here once it's connected, so remember it's doing this connection, setting up this connection, remote connection to your Scuttlebot, it'll call back with this function which has that typical callback signature, which is error first and the SBot provided second. Does SBot also act as a client? I guess clarify what you mean by client. Simono ID. So there's client gets used in a couple of ways in this context. It means a client app, as in a way to look in, and ssb-client, which is a remote connection to your SBot. Yep. Okay, so let's try and get a minimal setup working. We've got and then the code said you can just go client, and then it takes an error, it takes a callback. Otherwise, let's do something with our SBot. So SBot actually has a who am I method on it as well. And this is the most mundane thing you could do. And I think it's synchronous, but let's just run it and see. So, whoa. Oh, I see. I've messed up my setup a second. I think my setup's lagging a little bit and I accidentally full screened something. Give me a second while I fix it. Whoop. Okay. Where were we? So we've got an SBot running over here, and we are waiting for okay. Sorry about that. Okay, let's run index.js and see what happens. Undefined. Well, that's encouraging, isn't it? Probably let's go look up the documentation. Obviously, I'm not super familiar with that command. So, part of the problem with the documentation is there's bits of documentation everywhere. I've actually started a GitHub repo for exactly this purpose. Scuttlebutt guide. So this is a map of known documentations and a growing list of tutorials. This tutorial hopefully will go into this guide. Where were we? Basics. Open a client. This is not what I want. I want the API. Who am I? It's synchronous. Should be synchronous. Weird. Synchronous with a takes a callback. Okay. So, change our code around. Great. So, you'll notice it's output two things. So this must be a callback, which is also of the form error data. So we could do if error console.error the error. Just return, no, not return. Else console.log data. This is pretty gross. Hooray. Now you'll notice that this connection stays open. I kind of want it to quit out once it's done. Often you want things to keep running, but in this case I want it to quit. So I think it's just sbot.close. If you go and look at Scuttlebutt, it doesn't have explicitly this close method, but I think there's a Scuttlebutt is actually an instance of something called multi-server, and if you look at multi-server, it's got this close method on it. So there we go. Okay, so let's just make a series of increasingly complex functions, and I'll pause occasionally and read your questions. Yeah, okay. So keep questions coming if you have any. We'll call this Who Am I? Yes. And we'll make a copy of it and go last message. Last message? Yeah. We'll number these so they're... So by the way, I'm trying to make this as a repo so that you can come and look at it later, or other people can come and look at it. So now we're looking at last message. So this is me prefiguring what I want to do next. I already know a little bit about the ssb API. Let's look at some of the other things that we can do. We can do something called a create feed stream and create a log stream. So let's do that. Yeah, let's just jump straight to that. So what's the difference between these two things? To be honest, I often forget. I don't use them that often. I use things higher up in patch core. So fetch messages ordered by their claimed timestamps. Oh yeah, so this is timestamps is one of the challenges in a peer-to-peer system because you don't control who writes a particular message. If somebody else wrote it, they can actually stamp it with any timestamp they want. Whereas there's also like the time that you receive something, so you know for sure when you received something, and so that if you want to be fancy, you can actually compare them. Let's just use create feed stream and trust our other peers as they're writing them. So let's look at the API of this. We've got JavaScript. Okay, so it takes, okay, I'm looking at the wrong one. That's a get. We want to look at a stream. So create feed stream. It takes all of these arguments potentially. We're just going to start with a really simple one. We're going to use reverse. Reverse says start reading from like most recently backwards. Otherwise, if you start reading from the start of time, you might get messages 2 years old, and then, yeah. And I think we might use limit. My database has thousands of messages in it. If we don't use limit in this demo example, it's going to explode. So create feed stream. Let's have a go. And I want to give it some options, so I'm going to say reverse true, and I'm going to say limit, let's just get 10 messages. But how do we do something with this now? That's not immediately obvious. You're just messing around with the size of this. So you'll notice it's called stream. So Scuttlebutt uses streams extensively. It doesn't use the native node stream though. It uses something called pull stream. Actually, let's use the guide because I think I found a few nice resources for it. Pull stream, and the pull stream FAQ, but it doesn't look like I've put it in here. So what a total mess. Right. So what I want to give you like a simple intro to pull streams. So maybe I'll just write my own in here. So let's start by requiring it. And I'll write you a couple of demos of the main use cases. So the way pull stream works is so a stream always has at least two parts. It has a source and it has a sink, and data gets pulled streams because the data is pulled out of the source. The source is basically a function which you can call a method which is like next, like give me some more content please, I'm ready for it. In this case the sink provides that pressure, or that pull, and it will do something with that data. And in more advanced cases you can have a through which pulls from the source and then provides another source for the sink below it. So let's look at a really simple example. A source which, this is kind of a silly way to make a source, which can be useful for demoing things. So what this is going to do is provide a source when the first thing that you pull will be the 1, and then it will be the 2, then the 3, then the 4, then the 5, then the 6, and then the source will close the whole stream. And our sink is going to be a drain, and this provides a this takes a callback, which we're going to call like a message because that's the context we're in. And we can do console.log, here is the next thing in the pull stream. So there we see it pulling through, pulling each of those values. I'm going to add let's add a couple of fancy things. I'm going to add a through which doubles the values. So there's a map function, pull.map, and it behaves kind of how you might imagine. So this is going to return the doubled value, and so let's just call it double. There we go. And then what's something we could do? You can also do a filter. var filter. I can't really come up with a good example on the fly. So I want to, with those results that we've mapped, I might want to only pass the ones which are greater than or equal to 6. like that. So I'll pause there and maybe check if you've asked any questions about pull. Where are we up to? What do those columns mean in the documentation for the potential parameters? I think it's just meaning that those are properties. So this is a property. So this is an object. I don't know why the person who wrote this wrote it like that, but it would just be live, and then live is a thing which you provide the property true or false, and it defaults to false. So we're going to have a look at a live stream as the next example, actually. Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions about pull streams. So that's a real simple example, which I'll just leave commented out. Let's now use it. So we need to go pull, and this is actually our source, so we don't need to do this, but just to make it a little bit more explicit and readable, I'll like name some of the parts. And our sink is going to be a drain, and it's going to take each message. Oh, that's right, it's a callback, which is of the format error message. And let's just, to start with, console.log the message, the whole thing, and see what we get. Woo! What have I done wrong? Okay, that's weird. Maybe I've forgotten things. Okay, so here's a bunch of messages. It's a total mess. So undefined. What's that, I wonder? I think this is the error, interestingly. Maybe. Let's have a look. Okay, so let's make this a little bit more easy to read. And in doing so, we'll sort of be trending our way towards making an actual view. So our sink will be a pull drain, and let's just instead say it's going to take a function called render message. And we'll call this function render message. We'll move it around a little bit. And let's look at the anatomy of one of these messages a little bit closer. It's a little bit hard to see, but each message has a key, which is its unique identifier in the system. This is like a hash of the content, actually. It's a hash of this part, I think, including the signature. And this is what makes it so easy to gossip and be clear about what's been said and who said it. So it's got a key and it's got a value. And the value is, do we need to get into this? The important things are there's an author, so this is who said it. At the moment this isn't readable, we can get to that as well. Generally the things that are important are the author and the content. So let's just do a first pass where we just make that a bit easier to read. So console.log message.value.author. And error happened. What is, I'm obviously misunderstanding something. That's a disturbingly intermittent problem. Okay, maybe the callback is totally not the shape that I thought it was. Embarrassing. Looks like the callback just needs to be is just of this form. That's probably why I was trying to do that. Okay, so that's still a little bit of a mess. Let's put some space into this. Okay, that's a start. We might do something where we might just pull out the text. I'm going to use Lodash to help out a bit. Let's just install all of Lodash. We don't need it for this case. Let's print out what type of message it is. I'll tell you why I'm doing this in a moment. And we'll print out the text. So you'll see that vote messages don't have text. Post messages do. Channel messages don't either. So this is one of the challenges in Scuttlebutt is you need to be careful about how you're passing the data that you're receiving, because you didn't form that data. It's totally possible for someone to write some code which posts a post message and doesn't use a text field. They use like a paragraph field or something different. Okay, let's pause for some questions. Hashtag. Okay, so hashtag is a channel key. Yep, you're totally right. Tomato peel. The window manager. Yep, i3. Love it. Can't get enough. Oh, I think I'm running i3 gaps because it's those pretty gaps around things. Okay, so we are printing out messages. It's all right. Let's make an iteration though of this. Copy 3. Last messages. We'll make it live. Okay, so I'll delete that example. I don't know if we can use live and limit. I think when I was playing around with this, yeah, no, we'll do something different. We use the greater than. We'll use the greater than thing because you can sort by timestamp, or you can make limits on timestamp. Sometime ago is going to be. How did I do this? I think I've done a little bit of a demo run of this. I'm just going to go steal some code because I'm lazy. Yoink. So what does this do? It makes a number out of the date that the time that this is run at, and then it goes back 60 minutes in time, and so that's just a Linux timestamp. I think you'll see that on the messages. I'll just cheat and use patch bay. So in patch bay you can inspect a message by clicking this little gear thing and see the message like this. So here's the timestamp. This is just the Linux time as an integer. Alright, so what was I doing? We're going to make it live, and we're going to make it greater than some time ago. Reverse true, live true, and see what that does. Okay, so it just printed out a bunch of messages. We could print out the timestamp for those messages as well. Let's do that. What was it? It's message dot message.value.timestamp. I think this is the received timestamp. Where's the... okay, we'll just use it. So this was posted on the 5th. I think you can get it. Oh, so this is one of those problems where why is timestamp not defined? Where sometimes messages come through that don't have the right form. So let's go if there's no message dot value dot timestamp console log. Here is the culprit. Did I miss it? Oh, I can't read properly timestamp of undefined, so that's not going to work. If there's no message dot value, here is the culprit, sync true. Right, so this is one of those things which I don't think has came up in the documentation. I think what this is when you make a live stream, it publishes that as like an event. Once it gets to the I'm up to date stage and I'm just now watching. So how are we going to deal with that? If message.sync, let's use sync, we can just use this, don't worry. If you're watching along and you already have patchwork, you can post a message and when your gossip gets to me, your stuff will turn up in the stream. Hooray. So let's just prove that that's true. So I'm going to post a message. I'll post a message in the ssb learning. What have I got? Here's a test post and a demo for the stream. Here it is. Here's a test post for the stream. Looks like somebody else liked something as well. So you can see it's got type. You can see the author is this person. If you just copy, this, yeah, it looks like somebody else is testing something as well. That's nice. If you paste this value, this identity value, so we know it's an ID because it starts with @ this will take you to my profile. So that's a crappy way of seeing who things, who a message belongs to. Right, so any questions? What are we using SSB for? So this is just if you've just joined, this is a learning just a learning session about how to get started with some basic JavaScript and secure Scuttlebutt. Things that are built with Scuttlebutt are things like this client, which is PatchBay. There's another really squish one called Patchwork. There's also PatchFoo. There's decent min-base heaps. You can build things like, we don't have the chess plugin installed at the moment, but yeah. Hi, Happy. Nice to meet you. See you. Okay, so where have we got to? What was the next feature? Well, how do you... I think the next thing that annoyed me was like, this author thing, this is what an eyesore. Surely we can convert that into a human readable name. Yes, we can. So this one takes a little bit longer to do. Yeah, let's just get into it. Okay, so we're getting the messages from the last hour and then seeing the new ones come in live, but we want to get the author. So in here we want to do something like get the author. How do we do that? Okay, so I'm going to rearrange the code a little bit now. Do I need to? No. I'm going to add another thing into the stream, which is decorate we'll call it add author name. So this is going to be a, if you remember from our, so this is this example of how pull streams works. We've got, it's a bit faint for you perhaps. You've got a source and you can run it through different functions. And this is just a map function which doubles everything that comes through. You can filter them. So what we're going to do is something like a map, but a little bit more complicated. So we're going to add the author name. So how do we do that? Well, function add author name. Well, we kind of want to go, so in secure Scuttlebutt, names are just another message. So what we want to do is get, and what's the most common way to declare a person's name is an about message. So let's go look for a new person and see, hi there, see how they've introduced themselves. So here's a range of different messages, usually going back to the start of their feed. And then I'm going to go and have a look at how they named themselves. Right, so this is it's an about message and it's just got a name property in it. So what I want to do is let's just go and find the most recent about message that a particular user has posted. So how are we going to do that? Let's look at the documentation. We're going to create a user stream. So this is fetch messages from a specific user ordered by sequence. So what I want to do is yeah, I want to, let's look at the JavaScript example. Give it an ID, which is like my ID, which is that @ye blah 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 public key, and then stream through until I find an about message, and then use that and then attach that to the original message. Phew. So maybe I'll write that as some pseudocode. Okay, so take a message, take a message in, pull out the author ID. So that was like @ye blah 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 blah. Create a new user stream and look for the first, the last, the most recent about message they have published. Add the name from that about message to decorate the original message. Okay, so how do we do that? Well, we've got a little bit of a problem in that this is a stream. So unlike the map in this simple example where we were just doubling a value, and that's synchronous, I can't do that. So this is where we can use a thing called pull paramap. Parallel mapping for a pull stream. So what does it do? Like if you've got a source, it allows you to, the data coming through, in this case a message, will be given to this function, and once you've done something asynchronous and you've got your result, you can run the callback. Okay, so let's just do this step by step because it feels complicated otherwise. I don't know if this should be... feel like got that quite right. I'm not as used to writing through streams. We'll try it out. Okay, so need to install paramap, and paramap takes the message and like a done, I'm gonna call it the done callback. And let's just do a really simple version of this to start with, which doesn't use anything asynchronous. So let's do let's get the author out. We'll call it ID because it's the author's ID as opposed to the author's name. get message dot message value author. I can already see that sync thing is going to be a pain, but I'll just ignore it for the moment. And then I'm going to imagine I've got the name. And then I'll add it as a decoration. So we'll do the complicated stuff in the middle later. I just want to check that my basic setup works. So the original message is message, and I want to go message dot value dot author name equals name. And now that I've done that, I can use the done callback, give it null and the message, and hopefully that will sugar them all with the name. But now I want to sorry, I'm not excellent at multitasking sometimes. Talking and typing can be hard. Not that. Ruh-roh. Something gone wrong. I think it's because I've put this in incorrectly. Yeah, I'm almost sure it is. Okay. So it works mostly. Everyone is mixed. So this is like the total MVP. It's not actually getting that other part of the data, but at least we can show we can decorate that message that's going through the stream. Let's look at this error now. Author name isn't can't set property author name of undefined. I wonder why it can't. It's because of that damn sync message again. So if you've just if you weren't here when that happened earlier, because we're running this live stream, there's actually a message which has message.sync instead of being an actual message. So let's just test for that here again. If message.sync, I don't want to run the things below here, and I probably still need to run the done callback. I'll just pass the message through unsugared. Hooray. Okay, question time. Backseat coding, yeah, by all means. Yep, Vim is sweet. It's a bit of a rabbit hole. Pairing with people while using Vim is a good way to learn sweet shortcuts. Feel free to ask me about thingamajiggs. Ask me about if I've done something and you haven't seen it before. So asking about Electron is Patch Bay and Patchwork are running an Electron, but you don't have to run an Electron. I'm just running a node script, as you can see in the terminal. Oh yeah, so you've already answered that, sorry. SSB names might exist. I actually haven't tinkered with that. I figured it could be an interesting way to explore pull streams just to, as an exercise to like write our own. Async map with async map. Ooh, interesting. I haven't done that. I'd love to see that solution as well. I'm going to publish this GitHub repo. Would love to see alternative solutions because I'm sure there's like really tidy ways to do it. You're right, we should use by type instead of by user. And then, okay, let's go that way. Yep. Yeah, okay. Yeah, how could you make my code copy pastable? Well, I guess if I like continuously pushed up to GitHub, that would kind of work. Or ASCII Cinema, I haven't seen that. Haven't seen the mini combinator. Some of the combinators scare me a little bit. Yeah, the Lodash get function is really nice. The reason we use it, or I use it, is it means that if you can't get a thing because something in your chain of digging into an object doesn't work because that property wasn't there, it just fails safely, and you can actually fall back to a default value. Like you can provide an argument which is like, oh, if you can't find a thing, just return false or whatever. Oh yeah. Yeah, I've recently bought a really classic ThinkPad, which has a hard disk drive and only 4 GB of RAM to force me to code a little bit better. Can you get a channel stream? I don't know. You probably can. I'm streaming. Can I hold this baby while streaming? Sure. Here's my baby. This is Ziva. How long would you like me to hold her for?
3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. Let's see what we can do. So we might get some screaming with the streaming. Okay, so we've got this. We've got part of the solution. The next part is how do we get the actual author's name? So I think Ziva. His name is spelled Z-I-V-A. Yeah, precisely 3 minutes. Yes, it's a ThinkPad. Oh no, it's a ThinkPad X201. Okay, so you said something about type messages. Message by type would be unperformant. Okay, let's just not do that then. So we're going to continue with what I was more familiar with, which is create user stream. So there's unperformant things about this as well, but it doesn't matter. We can fix it a little bit maybe. So sbot create user stream, and I think this needs the ID. And what does it need? So we're going to use reverse because I actually want the things from most recently. I don't want because sometimes people can change their names. Mix, you can use SBot links. Yeah, I haven't looked at SBot links, but I'm gonna just carry on. I think the way that I'm coding this doesn't use any of the plugins, so we haven't talked about adding plugins. I think SBot links, yeah, might need a plugin. Correct me if I'm wrong, Happy. So this is a stream, so we're going to pipe that stream together. This is a source. We need a sink. And I'm actually going to make a filter now. So I'll just put the sink as a placeholder. So the message is coming through from the user stream. We only want the messages which have the about type. And it's actually a little bit more than that. So message.value.content.type. Get message value.content.type. We actually want several things to be true. In Scuttlebutt, it's possible to post about messages about other people. So, for example, I find it difficult to say happy 0. It's too long, I'm too lazy. I can actually go and rename. Let's just do it now. Happy 0. I'm really sorry if you've got personal reasons that you're happy 0, but I can publish a message saying, no, you are just happy. And so that's me asserting that's me asserting something about another person. So this is the author, me, asserting something about Happy. His name is Happy. I don't want, for the cases of this example, I only want the author's name for themselves. So what that means is the author here should be the same as the person that they're talking about, as in they're talking about themselves. Because I'm just going to trust a person to name themselves. So I want the message to be about, and I want the message value content about, like who is it about, to be equal to the ID, as in the author's ID. So let's only pass those ones through. And then what do I want to do? I've got a sink. So I'm going to have a drain where we've got the message coming in, and I want to get the name out of that message. Content name. And then I want to, so now we're actually into this, but here. There's a little bit of a gotcha. This message is not, this in this scope, this message is the about message. So I'm going to call that about message so that it doesn't collide with the original message, which is the one that was the message that was posted, and we're still trying to find out the person's name on it. So the name is, we can probably just do that. Take the about message, go into its value content name, and then call back. So there's going to be some problems with this a little bit, but yeah, we'll see. So you'll notice it's running really slowly, and I think that's because it's found someone and it started streaming in reverse through their feed, and it's still going. So, and it could be that there are several of these streams running. So it looks like it's working. Well, let's double check. Was that Seth? Yes. Great. So it's kind of working. But what I want to add now is, and this could be a totally terrible way to do things, but I want to, this user stream is going to continue regardless of whether I've called back, and it might call back several times. It's going to call back several times if there are several about messages, and I don't know what that will do. So what I actually want to do is abort the stream once you've found the most recent about message about whatever. Okay, so how do I do that? I only recently found out about this when I was prepping for this a little bit. There's something called pull abortable, which is quite nice. You can put an abort function in the middle of the stream, and when you call abortable.abort, it sends a flag up and down the stream saying we're done, and it like quits. So we're going to add that. And then I'm going to put that in here. I think that was how the code was used. Yes. Yes. So once I'm done, I will also abort. And hopefully that will be less onerous. Oops, what did I just do then? I think I just killed that. No. Cool, there we go. So, yeah. And if we were being really fancy, we would probably build a cache so that we didn't do the same lookup multiple times. maybe let's do that, and then I might. Oh, no, I'll pause for questions to see. Mix, you could. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Did I make a typo? Reverse. Nice catch. Thank you. We would have been getting stale names. Yeah, you're right, because if we look at Happy's message, it's Happy0. Oh no, that's my, I renamed him, so this wouldn't work for that anyway. Yeah. Yeah, I'd like to organise a meetup in Wellington. It'd be really cool to share resources so that we can run those. Just sort of like run an onboarding party. I think there are a bunch of concepts that are a little bit different in this space, which could be good to intro people on as well. Yeah. Yes, and do you have some suggestions, Rinshin AT, about a good collaborative editor with great voice chat? I guess my experience in the last year is that having reliable voice chat is actually pretty difficult to set up on average. Yeah, I haven't tried out the Atom thing yet. I haven't tried Gobby either. Hi, Jake. Yeah, there are a bunch of interesting emerging peer-to-peer technologies. Personally, I'm backing DAT and Scuttlebutt at the moment. Yeah, you're welcome. All right, so I've got a background as a teacher, so I've got all of these like old hang-ups about how to teach. So I'm gonna go through everything that we did here, because it started out simple and got a little bit layered and more complicated. So maybe I'll refactor a little bit as we go. I could pull this out, I guess. This is like a definition of what a minute is. Where is the source used? Oh, all the way down there, gross. I'll probably put these things next to each other so it's a bit easier to read. So what were we doing to start with? Oh, that's right, we were. So if I was refactoring this, I would probably, like, writing this in general, you wouldn't name the things as variables. Might just do that to make it easier for you to read. So hopefully that's pretty intuitive. We're creating a stream of recent messages that starts an hour ago, in our case, is live, as in it will keep updating, and it's the reverse is like it's from most recently, or from right now, it jumps back an hour ago and then goes live from there. It then streams that through like an async map, or I'm using paramap in this case. Maybe there's probably other pull stream things that will help out. And then finally I'm draining that into render message, which in our case is just a console log out into the terminal. This drain would, in a client app with a view, would be where you might add things to your like state if you're using Redux or something like that. Or you could just append things to the DOM is another thing you can do. So let's look at add author name, just cover over what that did again. When you call this, it returns a paramap, and paramap is like a pull stream. It's a through stream which handles asynchronous things. So it takes the message in and it expects a function which and it provides to that function the message that's coming through the stream, and it provides you with a function called done callback, which to call once you've finished messing around with whatever it was that you couldn't do just instantly or synchronously. So what did we do? We opened up a new stream to look for a user's name, basically. We created a stream based on a person's ID, or the ID of the current message. We looked for about messages, and about messages which were about that person themselves. And then finally, in the drain, we added an author name. We sort of decorated or sugared this message as it was going through. And finally, we used that done callback to send it back into the stream. So once it's done here, so it's done here, then it continues to flow through into this pull.drain, which finally renders the message. The tricky thing here, which I added, and not sure if it's the best solution, is an abortable. Basically, this is a thing that can stop a stream before it goes through 10,000 messages posted over the last few years. And that's it. We could refactor this, pull it out into different files. That would be nice. I'm just going to leave this as part of this series so people can see a progression. Feels like this one here is quite a large jump, but pausing for questions. Anyone got any questions? I haven't been pushing the code so far. Let's just do that, and you can maybe start. I need to add a README. Yeah, so here you go. Yeah. Okay, so I think I'll pause the recording now, maybe ask what else people might like.